I'm Todd Bookspan, and welcome to your neighborhood real estate show. The hyperlocal real estate show where real estate professionals talk about the neighborhood you live in or the neighborhood you want to live in. This episode is brought to you by homebuyeruniversity.net, your free comprehensive guide to buying or refinancing your home. Click over to homebuyeruniversity.net to get started online today. Hey everyone, I'm Todd Bookspan. Welcome to another episode of your neighborhood real estate show. I'm super excited for you all to meet Jesse Torres with Keller Williams East Valley Realty. Did I put Realty in the right space in that one?
All right. You got it.
Perfect. I never know if it's Keller Williams Realty East Valley or the other way around.
Yeah.
And then you're also Casitaz.com, which is like
That's right.
kind of spelled like a casita with a Z on the end for AZ. I like that.
Leave out the S, AZ.
Yeah, exactly. For those listening, they can't tell you got a cool shirt on that says that, but
that's right.
But we'll make sure that everyone we'll put that in the show notes so everyone knows how to find you.
Awesome.
So I know you said you've kind of had this unique real estate experience. You said you started back in real estate back in the mid 2000s. What were you doing back then that sort of got you to look at real estate, and then how did you kind of decide, a decade later to jump in full time?
Back in, I can tell you the year specifically, 2005, we were trying to sell a home and we couldn't sell it. So our realtor at the time said, "Hey, Jesse, why don't you rent it out and then you can just manage it from there." So we did that, and I got a little bit of a taste of being a landlord, and I liked it. I started thinking, oh man, I'm having somebody else pay my mortgage. I mean, all the stuff that we all know, right?
We all read about it, but people don't always do it.
Yeah, exactly. So ever since then, I thought, man, I would love to look into this a little bit more, but just the thought of being out there and not getting that steady paycheck kind of freaked me out, to be quite honest with you. So it wasn't until 2018 I got my license, and I'm now doing this full time, and I love it.
So what was that previous career you were doing that prepared you to be a real estate agent?
So I was in the health and wellness / call center industry.
Oh, wow.
So I, and it was great. Looking back now, I learned a lot about leadership, communication, organization. So I think it prepped me well for kind of getting into real estate.
Well, and you got in at an interesting time. I mean, 2018, 2019, they were good markets. They weren't great. And then obviously 2021 was, just unique. And then here we are in 2022.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy the way it's changed. But people tell me that you've kind of tasted a little bit of everything when you got in, and what happened during COVID and where we're at now. So it's been incredible actually to see how much it's changed just in those short 5 years.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously you have rental property yourself. Do you still own rentals? Is that still a big part of your business?
Not right now. So, that's a big part of my personal life, I guess you can say. So, I have a home that I make available to snowbirds in the wintertime. In the summertime, my kids and I, and my family, we try to enjoy it as much as we can.
That's awesome.
Up on the Colorado River and having a good time. So, yeah.
So talk about how you're working with buyers in this market, because a lot of buyers are scared right now. So what type of advice are you giving them in this market?
I give the advice of when we're in this type of market, there's always opportunity, and I can kind of spit out all the numbers that everybody else is giving, but with some real world experience, I'm working with a first time buyer now, and I can tell you she just got a smoking deal. She's closing in a couple of weeks, and what she was able to purchase as her first home and the incentives or the concessions she got back from the sellers, I mean, she's going to be in a good spot, especially when this market turns around, because it will. I mean, they always do, right? So she's in a great spot. So I tell buyers, hey, you got to play the long game too. Like if this is really something you want to do right now, there's going to be benefits down the line.
It's funny you say that. I was talking to my wife about that yesterday, is that the times where I've thought long-term, either intentionally or not, just happen to do it. Those are all the things that have worked out the best for me. Anytime I've made a short-term decision, those tend to be the decisions that I've lost money on or just haven't had the result that I really wanted.
Right.
And so I love that idea of long-term thinking. So you mentioned concessions, right? So someone who's unfamiliar with how that would work. So really, instead of asking for a discount on the price, or maybe you did, but part of that you just built it and said, hey, seller, can you give my buyer some money towards closing costs or buying the rate down?
Right. That's exactly what happened. So my my buyer, we're getting our closing costs covered by the seller. So now she has a chunk of change that she can buy her rate down, and she's got a really good rate. And even past that, looking, you go through an inspection process and all that, we're getting concessions back on that too. So just all around, it was great to get the deal that we got. I'm real happy for her.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. I can see it in your eyes for those who are listening. So as you go through the inspection, so, during 2020, 2021, when people had 25 offers on a house, you did a home inspection, but you really couldn't ask for any repairs most of the time. And so now you're saying that you can go through there, and if they're like, oh, the water heater's, 25 years old, you can say, hey, we need a new water heater. Is that kind of how it would work? Or?
Yes, absolutely. You can get a new water heater. You can get some roof work done, or a new roof in some cases. You can get a home warranty from a seller. There's so much that you can get from them now because they're motivated. They know what's happening in this market and they want to sell. And but to your point, a year ago, you had to give all that up to just get under contract. So it's total 180 now for buyers.
Well, and you mentioned, first time buyers, for me, historically, when I work with a first time buyer, right, it's a lower down payment loan. They're limited on their cash, right? Someone who's selling a house tends to have, 50, 150, whatever that amount of money is to put down. And so when they were having to bid up prices, they were able to, they were fine with that because they could pay over price because they had the cash. Most of the first time home buyers that I talk to at least just don't have that. And so they were kind of priced out of that market. And I think a lot of them are frustrated now because their interest rate is higher, maybe their payment's higher on the home, but now you just nailed it. They can actually get into a home, which is really to me, that's the ultimate goal, is to build home equity and build, net worth through owning real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. And then going back to the, what's your plan for this home? That's one thing I love to have a conversation with my clients. So I'm talking to a lot of buyers now. What's your plan? What are you thinking a year, 3 years, 5 years, and I love to help them kind of create that plan, even if they're not thinking that way. And we write it all down and we get that going during our consultation. So I can see how excited my client is to see where maybe her life will be in that 3 years, 5 years.
Well, I love that because I think, not to sound naive, but when I bought my first home, I was young and I never thought that far with it. I really just thought of, hey, this is a great way for me to have roommates who can pay my mortgage. Right. But I never really thought long-term. So I love the fact that you're sitting down and encouraging them to do that because, most time if you ask a first-time home buyer, some think they're going to live in there forever naively, or some might have not even thought, hey, maybe this is something I'll turn into a rental in 3 years, or like you had done in 2005, or maybe something totally different. They just don't know. So I love it that that's part of your consultation.
Yes, absolutely.
So you guys listening to that, if you call a realtor and they're like, oh, just meet you at the house, that's not the service that you're giving. You're actually sitting down with your buyers and going through. Oh yeah. No, we're going through, I have a buyer consultation and a seller consultation. So we sit there and we talk about expectations, right? What is your plan? What do you expect of me? Here's what I would expect of you, right? And just kind of line up the whole process so they're aware of what's happening, and showing them what their competition looks like, and what's happening real time in this market. So we have a whole meeting consultation before we even get started, and I find that that's very helpful because we can even refer back to that, as we're going through a transaction or as we're going through our search. Hey, remember we talked about this, because sometimes what if you get under contract in a home and a buyer may be thinking, oh my God, Jesse, is this the right thing? And like, hey, let's go back and look at what was important to you. This, all three of your boxes here are checked. So yeah, we know we got this, so it's I like to do a lot more than just meet them and then just start looking at homes. That's not what I do. Well, and I just love that. I think I don't say it's a lost art, but I just don't hear talking to clients. So tell me about the experience that you're having. And that's not the experience they're having. And I think, gosh, I want, friends and family and people I care about to have that type of experience when they're going through, it's cliche, but it's the biggest purchase of their life. To have somebody who doesn't take the time, I think, to do that is unfortunate for them. So kudos to you for doing that.
Thank you.
All right. So you mentioned sellers then. So again, sellers have to have a different mindset in this market. So it sounds like you're doing the same thing. You're sitting down with the sellers, you're setting expectations and consultations. So how are you talking about this market where there's more competition, where they may be the ones now giving the concessions to the buyer? What is your conversation like with them?
That's a good question. Over the last couple of years, it's just been such an incredible market for sellers. You can pretty much price your home at whatever you wanted to price it at, and you were going to sell it. That was just what was happening. But now, you see prices coming down, you see rates going up. Even if you just sit down and talk about what's your expectation, seller, as far as your home goes, why are you wanting to sell? So I like to show them that, okay, even we're not in the market where we were 6 months ago. This is what the homes are going for now. That's still if I told you 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you can sell your house for this much, would you have signed up for it? And a lot of them say, yeah, oh yeah, because they can still, if you price it right, you can still sell it. And if you not only price it right, but market it right, that's where I come in, to have a marketing plan and advertisement going on for them. You can still sell that home. So, but at the front end, it's just all about expectations, really just letting them know exactly where we're at now and what they can expect from the buyers out there.
Well, I love that question. If I would have told you 2 or 3 years ago, that's what you sell your house for. And I think that's, again, it's a long view, right? Mm-hmm. If you bought your house 2 or 3 years ago, you made a lot of money. So even if you're going to sell it for $10,000 or $15,000 less than you could have sold it for 6 months ago, you're still doing pretty darn well.
You're still doing well. And I would say most of those sellers would say, sign me up. I'll sell it for that much. So.
And so talk about marketing. I mean, it's again, it's a lost art. I feel like, especially agents who are, less than 2 years in the business, when all they had to do was put a sign in the yard and take pictures on their iPhone that, had their reflection in the mirror of MLS and post it, and it's still sold. Right. I mean, now you have to have a plan to sell a house.
You have to have a plan to sell a house. You're right. And you can touch so many people a lot easier now than you could, previously. So social media, Google, I mean, there's so many different channels that you can touch people. And I can tell you that I've done a lot of business through social media. So just getting it out there on a consistent basis, and even just having and some sellers may not be comfortable with this, and I get it, but a lot of people are on social media. So engaging them with it, making it a fun thing for them. Like, hey, here's what I just put on Facebook. How about if you guys want to check this out and share it with your community as well? So get people excited about it. And that's, I like to really show them how powerful that social media, Google, all of that can be for them to get as many people with eyes on your home as possible. Because it's not even just here in Arizona, people are moving around the country so much. They may know somebody that wants to move from, I don't know, Wyoming to Arizona, right? So you got to get it out there.
Yeah, no, I think it's so key. I mean, we're such a melting pot, and people are still coming here from all over to work remotely. Even in the summer, you're actually the first person who's told me that you love Arizona summers.
I do love Arizona summers. Pool parties, going to the river, going to the lake, like I love that. I mean, and I tell people that, and they look at me like I have two heads. Like, what, summer? But I don't know. I love the summer. I'm all about being outdoors. If there's a beach or a pool, like, sign me up.
I think it's a different perspective, right? I mean, we moved out here when I was a kid. We loved the summer, right? We weren't in school. We had a community pool, and we hung out with our friends. And then I think as I got older and grumpier, you stop doing the fun stuff. But you're like, hey, I can go to Salt River's great. You can hop in a tube and float down the river. You can go to, you said you guys are up off the Colorado River, jet skiing and doing other fun things. So I think it's just creating the activity. The activity that happens. Yeah,
just getting outdoors, and yes, it is hot, and everybody says with Arizona it's a dry heat, right? But
it really is. I mean, I did a lot of travel on my Airstream during COVID, and I was a lot of humid, hot places. 80 degrees and humid is ugly to me compared to 100 degrees and dry.
Sure is. Give me the dry heat anytime.
Yeah. All right. So tell me about Spring Meadows Commons. So you specialize in the Southeast Valley, although you do work with buyers and sellers all over this.
All over the Phoenix metro area. Yeah, absolutely. I live in Gilbert, and Spring Meadows Common, that's in Gilbert, and that community. When I moved to Arizona back in '89, so I've been here for a while. It's home for sure. That's where my family and I moved to, in that community, and I love it because it's a non-HOA, and for some people that's important. They're bigger lots as well, and I know a lot of the new builds that are going on now, they're smaller lots, and
it's
a lot
about
of people
as big
like
as my
that.
notebook here.
I get it, yeah, exactly. But having that space there, and it's just a really nice community. And I always remember moving when I moved in there. It's like, man, this is a really nice place because I could walk to my high school, and there's so much shopping, dining, all that around there. You know, downtown Gilbert area is just a short ride away. So it's an area that I've always kept my eye on, and I'd love to actually live there again one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. So downtown Gilbert's just a happening place too. You know, I grew up in Phoenix, and I was like, oh my gosh, Gilbert's really far away. But now I'm like, gosh, every time I go there, it's just great. I mean, tell the folks who don't know downtown Gilbert what's going on there.
Yeah. So there's so many places to go eat, shop, have a drink, just people watch. If that's what you like doing also, you know. And now that the weather is cooling down, I mean, just walking up and down Gilbert Road and hanging out there to make it a day. I mean, my kids love doing that. We go out there to have dinner and just kind of hang out. It's a great place. It's almost like I used to think of, to get that experience, you'd have to go like downtown or maybe to Tempe, you know, Mill Avenue, and this is kind of a smaller version. Although it's getting pretty busy and pretty big there.
I mean, it's got all great restaurants, and my kids love it because they try to twist my arm, take them to the candy store, the ice cream place.
Yeah, I got ice cream there. I'm a sucker for ice cream. That's for sure. Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's, you know, I think for someone who's listening out of state and they don't really know where Gilbert is, so you land, I just always, you know, Sky Harbor Airport, I just say it's kind of in the middle of everything. So which direction would they go, and how long would it take them to get there?
So it's about a 20-minute drive southeast from Sky Harbor Airport. Yeah.
I mean, that's the crazy part, right? If you had asked me before, I'd be like, oh, it's 45 minutes, but it's just not. I mean,
no,
you know, freeways now are really good around here, get people where they want to go.
For sure. And, you know, I mentioned when I moved here back in '89, you know, Gilbert was a very small rural type of place. I mean, there was cornfields and farms. And at first it was a bit of a culture shock, you know, coming from the Southern California areas, but it's home now, like I mentioned, and Gilbert is not that far out anymore. Like, you know, you have so many other places that you think of like, whoa, that's way out there now, you know, Queen Creek, Florence. I mean, those are all areas that are, I think, farther out. Absolutely. But Gilbert is kind of in the heart of Phoenix Metro now, if you will.
Well, and I think that it has everything now, right? And, you know, before, the only thing it doesn't have are the sports arenas, right? Because they're in, you know, Phoenix or West Valley. But other than that, everything is there. You don't need to go outside of the area to get anything that you have to have. Yeah,
you don't. And you've got a couple of freeways now that you can access from Gilbert, and that's always good as well, you know, to get where you need to go quickly.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so let's kind of circle back to the market for a minute. So if someone here's scared and they're not sure, is this the right time for me? What questions would you ask them? How would you encourage them to make that decision?
So I would first ask what is their goal? Like if you're buying, right? Like what is it that you want to accomplish? Okay, of course you're going to buy a home, but then what happens? You know, is this your forever home? Is this your 3-year plan? Do you want to rent that out at some point? I mean, what is it you want to do? Because I go back to, in any type of market, there's always opportunity, is the way I look at it, you know, to be able to either sell or buy. So I would really want to sit down and understand what their plan is for buying, if they're a buyer.
So you would help them decide if this is the right time or not.
Oh yeah.
Right. I don't see you twisting their arm behind their back, telling them they got to buy, right?
Yeah.
You're just going to ask them the right questions so that they can go through their own thoughts and processes to make the right decision.
Absolutely. And you know, that's even, I go back to the consultation that I mentioned. That's one of the areas we cover, you know, like, hey, at the end of this, we want 3 things to happen, right? Either you're going to hire me and be totally on board, or maybe you'll choose not to hire me, or maybe I'm not going to be able to fulfill your expectations, so I'm not going to be able to work with you, right? So it's just getting all that out there in front, I think, really helps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. Maybe I can't fulfill what it is you want to do, and maybe I'm not the right fit.
Let's do that right now instead of getting into this and then I can't fulfill your expectations then, and it's going to be worse, right? I mean, nobody wants to get into a situation like that.
Yeah, no, that's not good at all.
Yeah, and people look at me crazy when we talk about that. Like, wait, what do you mean you're not? Like, well, that's what we're gonna talk about the rest here, so we can figure that part out. So,
all right, so we covered a lot. Is there anything else that you think is awesome about real estate, or about Arizona, or the East Valley, or Spring Meadows Commons, like that we should be talking about?
I would just say that there's so much information out there right now, and it can kind of persuade you one way or the other, right? I truly believe, talk to somebody who's in the business, who's in the industry, who will be able to show you exactly what they can or can't do for you, so you can make that informed decision. Don't. It's just hard with all the. I get it. The information overload out there.
Oh, yeah.
Just get a hold of somebody. It could be me. I love to do it, but and we can have a good conversation about what your goals are in real estate.
All right. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I would certainly encourage you, if you're thinking about hiring a real estate agent to buy somewhere here in the beautiful Valley of Sun, reach out to Jesse Torres. So I know it's Casitaz, Casitaz. So we'll put it in the show notes. But for people listening, is that the best way to reach her, or how should people find you?
Casitaz.com. You can also look me up on social media. You'll see me there with all my contact information there as well.
All right. We'll make sure we get that down in the show notes. But I got to imagine that there's not just one Jesse Torres.
Right.
So how do we make sure they find the right one on social?
Well, you'll see all of my branding on there, Casitaz.com. I keep going back to that.
Let's keep it at Casitaz.com. All right, folks, reach out to Jesse. Thoroughly enjoyed it. That was awesome.
All right. Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by HomebuyerUniversity.net, your free comprehensive guide to buying or refinancing your home. Click over to HomebuyerUniversity.net to get started online today.